And I'm like, yeah. He said, well, we got a little problem. He said, I'm at the doctor's office. And he said, Mary just called me. She fell. And he said, I'm at Craig's office. And if I leave, I don't have a clue. And I said, well, no problem. I said, no problem. I said, I'll run over there. So about the time I was leaving, she called me. So I could tell from her voice that she was fine. So I get there, because of course we all have the code to her garage, and she usually leaves the door unlocked when she gets up. So I walked in and I said, and it was so funny because she was sitting like her recliner that she sits in. She was just down in the floor right in front of it with a space about that deep with her legs out in front of her. Well, what happens is when she sits, she has to kind of scoot to get up.
Meeting for 2019. We always proceed every council meeting with a word of prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Please feel free to join us if you'd like. Bow, please. Lord God, we thank you for this great nation. We thank you for this city. We thank you for the many blessings you've bestowed upon us. As we do business this year, Lord, we pray for your guidance. We pray for civility. These things we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now call this meeting to order. Mr. Garrett.
I know it.
Mr. Hawkins?
Here.
Mr. Grimes?
Here.
Mr. Pruitt? Here. Miss Mel?
Here.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Here.
Miss Smith?
Here.
And Miss Isby?
Here.
Okay, you should have received copies of the December 11th, 2018 City Council agenda. Any corrections or changes or comments?
Make a motion for approval as submitted. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Next up, we have our standing committee, starting with community development. Mr. Hawkins, 2019, it's all you.
Wow. Wow. I remember when Y2K was coming around.
I remember when the tornado came through Conway, so.
Yeah, well, that you got me there. I can't go back that far. Not because I'm not that old, but I just wasn't here. Oh, and there's my alarm. It's time to start the meeting. I'm sorry. First item on this portion of the agenda is a resolution adopting the organizational rules and procedures for the City of Conway City Council fiscal year 2019. And we have a resolution to be read for that. It's Resolution R-1901.
And there are no changes made, so it's just procedural.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the organizational rules and procedures for the city council meetings. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
What number was that, Mike?
Number one.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve the nomination to the Oak Grove Cemetery Board. Rick Wilbanks was inadvertently left off of the boards and commission approval list that we went through on December the 11th of last year. And Rick will have a 5-year term on the Oak Grove Cemetery Board, and Linda Rogers will have a 1-year term. She's currently set to roll off the board. However, she's agreed to serve out the remainder of Rick Green's term on that board, and I move that we approve both of those nominations.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the nominations to the Oak Grove Cemetery Board. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve transportation services agreement with the Boys and Girls Club of Faulkner County Council on Aging, and Independent Living Services. And is there anyone here that wants to talk about that, or?
And this was included in the 2019 budget.
Doesn't look like it, so you have your information there in front of you. So I would move that we approve those transportation services agreements.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the transportation contracts for 2019 for the Boys and Girls Club, the Faulkner County Senior Citizens, and the Independent Living Services. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is the ordinance to approve the private club permit for foghorns located at 2310 Sanders Road. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It is ordinance 01901.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This is the location of the old Outback off Sanders Road. I'll take a motion to adopt the ordinance.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion?
This tied in with foghorns in Fayetteville, by chance? Anybody know?
Not sure.
I did hear there's more than one location. It's a chain, a small chain.
Okay, I bet that's it then. Okay. There's a place in Fayetteville called Foghorns.
Okay.
I'm sorry? Same owner? Good,
Okay.
thank you.
Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt? Aye. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution requesting Faulkner County tax collector place a lien on properties at 105 Eve Lane as a result of incurred expenses by the city. Is there an owner or representative of an owner at 105 Eve Lane with us this evening? Eva Lane. I said Eve, it's Eva. It is Eve.
Eve
It
Lane.
is Eve.
Correct,
It
yes.
says Eva on my,
It's Eva here.
I was right the first time.
It says Eve on the.
I don't
Will
see.
speak for or against?
I don't see anyone, Mr. Mayor. It's $200.91 is the,
I make a motion for adoption of the resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for expenses incurred by the city. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
You know them.
7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance clarifying the fees for the construction and alterations of buildings and building systems and the temporary certificate of occupancy. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 01902.
Nothing changes. This is just a correction. I think during the process of amending the ordinances, the last ordinance omitted the temporary certificate of occupancy. So this is to add this back in.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption
With the emergency.
and the
clause.
emergency
I'll
clause.
second that.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance with the emergency clause. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
In the mercy clause, Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Both those pass 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance accepting and appropriating proceeds from Faulkner County for GIS work per the interlocal agreement for use by the Planning and Development Department. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's ordinance 01903.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Make a motion for adoption.
7-0. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion?
This is accounting ordinance, $3,500 a quarter from Faulkner County, $14,000 total for the year to come this direction.
Correct. Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to amend the conditional use permit number 1344, which allows restricted office in R2A zoning for district, in that district for property located at 831 Donaghy Avenue. And, hi,
This
good
is-
evening and welcome,
This
James.
is Mr. James Walden. He's our new planning director, and he is here. He's going to do like Brian did, especially for the people who are watching on TV, to explain what these changes mean so it answers folks' questions. So, James, you're up.
Yes.
Welcome.
So this is a conditional use permit. With a conditional use permit, what that means that there are certain uses within the zoning code that are listed as sort of uses by right. There are uses that are approved on a case-by-case basis with conditions, which would be conditional use, and then there are prohibited uses. So this is an example where we've had a previously approved conditional use that's being requested to be modified. Previously, the conditional use was limited to counseling, what it currently is, and it's being transitioned to allow sort of a broader set of uses that would be restricted office, which include administrative, executive, professional, medical, that have limited traffic impacts. So it's the occupants are currently not in the property anymore, and so it's meant to allow some sort of transition for it.
Thank you, James. That was a good explanation. Thank you.
It'll stay the same, except just removing number 4.
Correct.
Yes.
Spot next to Stubby's.
No, it's the one that's at therapy.
It's a little bit
It's
further
that empty
down.
lot now, right off the corner, Caldwell and. it used to
I
be
make a
that little-
motion, we
that-
approve this conditional use permit.
Second.
That's the house that, yeah, it's just down there.
Swoops around the roundabout.
Yes, Sheila.
It's a nice little house and has a,
Yeah.
No, it's just somebody else does.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this conditional use permit. Any further discussion? Do you have a question, Wes? All right, Mr. Garrett.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Passes 7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Let's see, Mr. Mayor, the next item is consideration to approve a conditional use permit to allow restricted office in R2 property located at 2470 Tyler Street. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their December 17th, 2018 meeting, and at that time, the commission voted 6-2 to 1 that the request be forwarded to City Council with a recommendation for approval with a condition listed, and that condition is that the permit is limited to the applicant, KSI Construction Services, and with that, I move that we grant this conditional use permit.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this conditional use permit. Any further discussion?
Why was there no votes?
Yeah, we had a no vote.
I know what Justin
were
voted.
two.
Same one, every meeting.
And one abstention, I assume. Do you know why, James?
I know that there was some opposition. From what I gather, the opposition related to the use of the access easement. I think some neighboring adjoining owners, or perhaps previous owners, someone that has some connection to the property, indicated that the access easement was intended to only be used for residential purposes. But that was, I can't really verify the veracity of that.
Reached out to me.
It was just one person. I was at that meeting. Yeah, and it was a property owner, so.
Okay. Mr. Garrett.
Wait, is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak about it? Is there any neighbors here?
He's not here.
Okay.
Good point. Thank you, David.
This is at the swimming pool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's property next to it.
Yeah.
Where the house is located, is it where the house is?
And I say swimming pool.
Mr. Garrett.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
7-0. Mr. Hawkins.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is consideration to approve a conditional use permit to allow restricted office in MF1 for property located at 855
Oh, you might be good on
Salem Road. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on December 17th of 2018, and at that time, the commission voted 9-0 to send this to City Council with a recommendation of approval with one condition, and that is that the permit is limited to the applicant, Counseling Associates Incorporated, and I'm assuming Ms. Isby probably won't vote on this one.
No, I won't.
I don't know. I don't see any reason why you couldn't, but.
Would you like to explain, James, the difference between restricted office and MF1?
Yes, for this, MSO, allow restricted office. Restricted office, again, is a type of use where we're talking about, similar to a couple cases ago, that relates to either something of a medical use, administrative use, executive, professional use that has limited traffic. These are meant to be for day programs for the residents of the apartments in that location, so it's a little bit different maybe than your typical office use.
And this is permitted by,
And our CEO is here to explain why this is being sought.
very good, this is permitted by conditional use in this
Correct.
zoning. Would you like to come and tell us why it's a good thing?
You did a great job. These are apartments. It's a HUD project that we've owned for many years. It's on the corner of Dave Ward and Salem. And not changing anything with the construction. There's a small community room at the apartments. And essentially what we're going to do, we've operated a day program at a building on Donaghy Road that runs about 10 to 15 people a day. Many of those live at these apartments. So we're just we're selling that building on Donaghy and relocating that day program to the community room at the apartments. So really shouldn't be any traffic. There's be no signage change, no construction, no difference in the building.
Make a motion for the adoption of the resolution.
We have a motion and a second to
For
approve
conditional
this
use permit.
conditional use permit with the one condition. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll
Passes.
abstain.
Okay. Thank you. 6 to
Thank
0. Thank you, Ms. Isby. Mr. Hawkins?
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is an ordinance to rezone property at 1630 Bill Lucy Drive from R1 to a PUD. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission at their meeting on December 17th of 2018, and at that time, the commission voted 9-0 that the request be forwarded to the City Council with a recommendation of approval. And we have an ordinance to read for this item. It's Ordinance 01904.
Would you like to explain, James,
Yes, a plan unit development, that's what a PUD is called. It essentially is zoning by site plan, so it allows a developer to bring in a site plan and sort of dictate the zoning rather than the normal zoning categories. It's usually intended to allow for some type of innovative development or something that, because there's a challenge on the property that it sort of some give and take between the developer and the city in terms of provide an outcome that is beneficial for everyone. In this, all of the uses are very similar to the R1 zoning. There's just some changes with right-of-way in terms of 40-foot right-of-ways instead of 50-foot right-of-ways. There's also some small changes with setbacks where the normal front and side street setbacks are 25 feet. There's a few lots in this development that have 15-foot setbacks. Those are the primary differences with this.
I make a motion, we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0.
I'll make a motion for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett?
The ordinance 01904. Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt? Aye. Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, James. Thank you, Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, indeed. Thank you.
Next up, we have an ordinance to waive bids and accept grant proceeds awarded to the Conway Fire Department Bomb Squad. Chief Winter. This is the Public Safety Committee.
Yes, good evening, thank you. The Bomb Squad Fire Department has received a Homeland Security grant, amount of $186,498. This is 100% reimbursable. So we're asking for acceptance of that and to waive bids where we can use that money to get our total containment vessel back to where it needs to be.
Make a motion.
that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0.
Make a motion for adoption.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion?
You don't need an emergency clause on this?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Garrett?
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Chief Winter. Next up, we have an ordinance to approve the asset forfeiture funds for various purchases for the Conway Police Department. Chief Spradlin. Chief, we spent a lot of, you and I and Chief Winter spent a lot of time on the phone this weekend,
We
didn't
sure
we?
did. We must like each other or something. We're asking, we got 4 items in this ordinance that we're asking to spend asset forfeiture funds on. Before we get started, I will say that these are items that we submitted originally for our 2019 budget. We did cut these out to help with the 2019 budget, so these are some of our cuts. And I'll just go through these, and you guys can stop me if you have any questions about any of them. First thing we'd like to do is purchase, it's what's called track software for $2,706.25. Track software will be used by our criminal investigation division, our detectives. It's basically a cell phone mapping software that will enable our detectives to backtrack a suspect's location in relation to a crime scene. And this is used through a search warrant that's signed by a judge, serve that on the cell phone company, and they give us this data. This software compiles all this together and basically gives us a video, play-by-play, of where the suspect was. We had a trial run with this software, which we used it on 4 of our major crimes, one of them being a homicide, and it was very vital into showing that the suspects were at the location like we suspected. So we're asking that we use some forfeiture money to buy that software. Any questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Next, on the list, we're asking to spend $7,150 to upgrade our undercover covert camera system. It's been several years since our narcotics division has updated their undercover camera systems, and we have a multi-application covert camera system we want to purchase for them that would be purchased through Adaptive Digital Systems. Multiple applications we can use for this, upgrade obviously in technology, as well as the quality of the audio and video that we would get. We do have a sole source provider for this particular equipment from this company. Questions? Next on the list, we're asking to spend $38,936.06. This will be to upgrade our pole cameras. We currently have 3 pole cameras that we have had for anywhere from 8 to about 10 years. These are antiquated pole cameras that we've been using. Technology obviously has changed over that time. The resolution on these cameras we have right now is very, very low, and we're able to get HD quality out of these new camera systems. In fact, the cameras that we have right now, Verizon has limited us to 3G usage on that because it downloads constantly. They don't like us using their fast download 4G and LTE on that. So we're limited to what they're supposed to, or what we can do with those old cameras. And Verizon has also announced that they are retiring their 3G system in 2019. So we're asking to replace our old cameras with 4 new ones that will be purchased through Tactical Video, and they have also provided a sole source letter with their product.
Make a motion, we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah. Any opposed? Passes 7-0.
I make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance, and I have it as 1906.
Oh,
I've got one more
I'm
on
sorry.
that list.
on the same one. My apologies, Chief.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go
I
ahead.
didn't see it either.
And the last, the 4th one on this list, we're asking to spend $16,000 to add to our K-9 unit a new police dog. Currently, we have 3, 2 assigned to our narcotics division. Of course, everybody knows Chip, that is an SRO dog. So we're asking to add a 4th dog. We're having a slight reorganization with the K-9 units. We will leave 1 in narcotics. We're going to put 2, with this being the 2nd one, with our patrol division. Right now, patrol division does not have access to a dog. If they need a dog, they have to call these guys out after hours. Time-wise, it's just not feasible. Just kind of give you an idea, over the last 2 years, the success of our police dogs in the narcotics division. In the last 2 years alone, they've seized $190,000 in cash, and they have taken $2.9 million of street value of illegal drugs off the street. That's in the last 2 years. That's with just using their narcotics detection only. These will be dual purpose. This will be a dual purpose dog, which is a narcotics detection as well as criminal apprehension that we do with those. We're asking that we be able to purchase the dog from Little Rock Canine Academy, the price of $10,200. We've been doing business with these guys for probably about 9 years now. It's one of the only local vendors that we have. They're right there in our back door. Guy offers us free training throughout the year. Any issues, we can just go down to Little Rock. We're able to work with that. The total price on this, we're asking for $16,000. It's obviously the purchase of the dog. It's the academy for the officer, the equipment that's required, such as the at-home kennels, collars, leashes, whatever it may be, as well as the vet services for 2019.
Thank you, Chief. We've already waived 3 readings. I'll take a motion.
We've done that too.
We did that already as well.
So we have a motion and a second
Yes.
to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
This is 7-0. Chief Spradlin, next up.
Chief, before you move on, what is an expected lifespan of a canine?
A lot of it depends on the breed you get. We get a Belgian Malinois, which is kind of like a Dutch Shepherd and German Shepherd mix, and some have described them as a German Shepherd on meth. They're pretty high strung. And those dogs seem to last longer than Shepherds. They're not as big, so they're 50, 60, 70 pounds at the most, whereas a Shepherd can get up to 90 pounds, which is easier on their body. So with all that being said, the Belgian Malinois have been lasting us up till about 9 to 10 years
9
old.
to 10? That's what I would have said.
And we get them about 18 months old.
Good,
So we're getting a good, 7, 8 years out of them, just depending on their health as they get older.
good, very good. Thank you.
Chief, we have another ordinance to appropriate reimbursement funds from various entities to the Conway Police Department.
General accounting ordinance, I have nothing to add on those items there.
Make a motion that we waive the 3 readings.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 3 readings. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 7-0.
Make a motion for the adoption of the ordinance 01907.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt this ordinance. Any further discussion? Mr. Garrett.
Mr. Ledbetter?
Yes.
Mr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Mr. Pruitt?
Aye.
Mr. Grimes?
Aye.
Ms. Mel?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Isby?
Yes.
Passes 7-0. Thank you, Chief. Good job on your exclamation. That's all we have tonight. I do have a few announcements. First, we'd like to extend our condolences to Aaron Knight. Aaron's father passed away. As soon as we have some details on the services, I'll email that out to all you guys. We're going to have a committee meeting on the 22nd, 2 weeks from tonight. We'll meet at 5:30 at the Federal Building. We're going to do a walkthrough there, guided by Felicia. And we hope to have some renderings and some drawings. And we hope we can get that done in, enough time where we can come in to have a second half of the meeting here. We're going to have a meeting amending our policies concerning attendance for our boards, committees, and our councils. And then tomorrow, James, is it 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
At 4 o'clock at the chamber, we're going to have a meet and greet for our new planning director. But that's all I have for now. With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.